When we think about neurofeedback, we sometimes think and associate it to cognitive decline. But what if you're an athlete? What if there's something that is keeping you from achieving that optimal peak performance? That's what we're going to be talking about today with Dr. John Silva, who has been helping me through my neurofeedback journey. And by the way, if you want to learn more about my personal neurofeedback journey, you need to email me at lily@whenyouneedafriend.com or text me at 407-373-5959 because it's my journey. And if you're not interested in it, I'm not going to put it out there. But if you are interested, I'm telling you, I've seen incredible changes. And we'll talk about those changes today as we talk about peak performance as well, because I've seen that within me as well. So Dr. John Silva, he is back to teach us how to use neurofeedback at the next level.
And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you.
Hi, my name is Lily McDermott, and I am a certified life coach. I'm also a certified holistic cancer coach and the host of the Lillian McDermott radio show Classroom. If this is your first time in the classroom, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. As I mentioned, Dr. John Silva has been helping me with my neurofeedback journey. It started on March 21st, 2024. And here we are in July experiencing even a different way of neurofeedback. And so we're gonna briefly talk about neurofeedback, but then we're going to talk about, for those of you who are athletes or who are wanting to achieve a higher performance level, can neurofeedback be the option for you? Well, make sure that you have your pen and paper, because we're going to learn and grow together, because it's our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge. And I am grateful that Dr. John Silva is here to do just that. Welcome, Dr. Silva, to the classroom.
Thank you, Lily. It's great to be back. An
Yes.
exciting topic today.
It is, because when we've talked about neurofeedback, we've talked about cognitive decline. And I
hmm
think that most people, especially if they think that they are um great multitaskers, which I used to say I was a great multitasker until I realized multitasking is a lie. When you like being a great multitasker, there is no such thing as that, because we miss out on so many other things that we don't know we're missing out of. So I've found that when I am focused on one thing and doing neurofeedback, it has sparked so much in me, whether it's focus, clarity, patience, seeing things through, like graduating from my holistic cancer coach program, which I'm just so excited about. I don't know if I would have had that stick to itiveness had I not had the neurofeedback. So
hmm
I've seen so many. It's like my husband was saying to me, honey, you're saying this has been life changing, but share how. So I'm sharing how. And now with doing the next level of neurofeedback, which is auditory, I've noticed that it's been clearing out some of my emotions that I did not know are trapped in there. So let's talk a little bit about your background and the miracle of neurofeedback. Share a little bit about that before we get started.
Sure. So I've been offering neurofeedback for quite some time now, and I've done some postgraduate training in different methodologies of neurofeedback, including what's called alpha theta training. We sometimes coin it as neuromeditation. And this is a specific type of neurofeedback that is most commonly used for peak performance. So it has a lot of applications. But I guess just in summary, for those of you that may not have tuned into previous podcasts, and I would highly encourage you to go back and learn more of the intricate details that Lillian and I have discussed on neurofeedback and its application and what we use neurofeedback for and how it works. But neurofeedback is a process that's been around for quite some time, for decades now. It's non-invasive. It's a way of using computer technology through what's called quantitative EEG, using sensors on the scalp and providing your brain a feedback mechanism, whether it's watching videos that fade in and out, or listening to auditory tones or music. And what this neurofeedback does is it helps to get your brain into a better balanced, regulated state. So just a little bit more background, quantitative EEG or EEG has been around for many, many, many years. It's a way of measuring our brain's function, which is important to know where your brain might stand, as with any other function in your body, even if for nothing else, just to know where you might be in your life at your age. But especially if someone is suffering with cognitive decline or noticing moments of forgetfulness, having problems with attention. So EEG is a way to measure brain function, and how we measure brain function is through measuring what are called brain waves, brainwave activity. And we have different brain waves that are always engaged in our brain, and people may have heard of the concept of our delta brain waves and our alpha brain waves and so on. That's what we're doing in this neurofeedback process, is getting your brain to bring those brain waves into a more harmonious, balanced, equalized state. And its application can help people with cognitive issues, of course. So again, whether a person's having troubles with attention, focus, forgetfulness, they're starting to notice their memory declining, these are all times that you would definitely want to investigate. First and foremost, how is your brain functioning? How are these brain waves doing? And then once that's determined and you can see the imbalances, what do we do about it? And neurofeedback, as far as I know, that still exists, is the most direct way to get our brains in a more balanced state. But it goes even beyond our cognitive self. Our brain also regulates and controls all of our emotions. So it's responsible for our emotional well-being. In fact, it's probably some of the main reasons why people even seek neurofeedback or my clinic, is because they're having problems with their emotional self, their emotional well-being. They're either highly stressed, they're anxious, they're depressed, or showing traits of depression, or a combination. Most people that come to see me usually have traits of both anxiety and depression at the same time. It's not uncommon. This is all part of our emotional well-being, and neurofeedback is well suited for helping to restore proper brain function so you can be in a more balanced emotional state, better emotional well-being. And that is a game changer for people, because when we're not emotionally balanced, it can wreak havoc on our day-to-day life with everything, our relationships, our own internal thoughts, our sleep, you name it. So that's huge. And of course, these are all our cognitive well-being, our emotional well-being, they all go hand in hand. And again, they're all coming from our brain. Okay. And then lastly, our behavioral well-being, again, our expression of our behaviors. Sometimes we'll think of behaviors more as it relates to children, but even us as adults, we have behaviors. And again, there's a societal norm. And when I speak of behaviors too, it's not your outward expression of behaviors, but also your internal behaviors.
Mhm.
Again, your thought processes. How is that all working out for you? And if you are noticing that you're getting easily agitated or aggravated, and you're expressing that
Yeah.
outside of your own thoughts, and expressing that to others, whether it be through just simple body or visual cues, or you're actually voicing these things, these are all things that can create, again, problems in your own life, with relationships and such. So that's the wonderful thing about
Yeah.
looking to the brain as the source of these things, and then using therapies like neurofeedback. We can restore balance and harmony of the brain and improve our cognitive, emotional, and behavioral well-being all at the same time.
You know, it's interesting because, and for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, I've been doing this since March of 2024, and we started with a visual, and then I think in April we changed to auditory. I'm not sure, maybe May. It was May that we changed to
Yeah.
auditory, and that was a even bigger change in me. So towards the end of me doing the visual, the training, and where I put the probes in different parts of my head, I noticed that I was like yawning, and I had mentioned it to Dr. Silva that I was yawning a lot. I felt tired after I was done. And he was saying, this is a workout for your brain and you don't even know it. It's a workout for the brain. So you might be tired. So when he switched me to the auditory, the alpha theta training, I thought, oh, well, I'm going to be falling asleep and just whisking away. I'm just going to have the best sleep. But the opposite happened. I guess I didn't hear you ever say that this could churn emotions in you. And after my third auditory training, the alpha theta training, even my husband said, you seem agitated. I'm a very patient person. As a coach, it's something that I must be for myself and for others, loving to get people where they need to be at a time. But sometimes we don't do that to ourselves. Sometimes we kind of like diminish emotions or, think that I've dealt with that or whatever. Even as a coach, coaches need coaches too. Doctors need doctors too. Lawyers need lawyers too. So I don't care what your educational background is or your financial background. We all need a little bit of help sometime. And I remember finishing my second or third auditory alpha theta, and I was fit to be tied. And I was having these emotions that I hadn't had in a long time. Emotions of anger, emotions of a certain level of awareness of being taken a bit for granted, emotions that now I can deal with because now I can take ownership for it. Whereas prior, I was just, and as I was saying to you this morning, as we got together for my session with you, is that I can see how people turn to television, or alcohol or drugs or anything like that to numb some of these emotions that are in the brain because you don't have to deal with them. But when I started doing the alpha theta, I had no choice because my brain could not filter it. Now I hear that this is normal from you. And I can see how this has affected my peak performance. And I had mentioned to you before, I don't know if I could have finished the certification for
Mhm.
a holistic cancer coach in the time that I did. I felt sharper. I felt more focused. I felt more free to take this as opposed to saying to myself, oh, what if you fail? What if you so emotionally I could see going through the alpha theta to really become a better athlete or a better executive or a better parent for all.
Mhm.
You don't have to have something wrong with you. So when we're uncovering these things, what in your experience have you, because you've been doing this for a long time,
Mhm.
have you seen athletes or regular people just like me and you what have we been able to achieve just by doing the alpha theta training?
Sure. So, and for those of us, again, tuning in maybe for the first time, Lily keeps mentioning alpha theta training, which is a specific
Alpha
type
theta,
of
sorry, alpha
neurofeedback.
theta.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's fine. That's
yeah.
fine. So we have what's called standard neurofeedback therapy. And just for again, tuning for the first time, what is neurofeedback? Well, what Liz is doing is she's using a simple to use home-based neurofeedback system, which is a laptop computer with some hardware, easy to run software program. She has sensors on her scalp, and these are sensors that are not emitting any electricity into the brain. She doesn't feel anything. These are just sensors that are reading and monitoring brainwave activity in real time. The software then creates a feedback for her brain to self-adjust and regulate these brainwaves. She started off, as with most of the people that come to see me, in doing what we call amplitude or standard neurofeedback. And that is either watching videos, and you choose the video that you want to watch, and as the video fades in and out, your brain is making these corrections. And you made a comment too that how you felt tired during some of these sessions. This truly is a workout for the brain. So it's not uncommon for people to feel tired during the session or during the last several minutes. That's a typical experience. And you've done that long enough to where I can monitor how your brain has changed, because every time you do a home neurofeedback session, all the data is from that session is recorded for that half hour duration. stored in the cloud, and I can review it remotely from where I'm
Yeah.
at my clinical office. And we have seen your brain progress. And of course, we've been checking in with each other on a regular basis, as I do with all my patients, to see how your cognitive, emotional, behavioral well-being are doing. And I know one of your goals is ultimately getting your sleep to where we feel it should be at its best. And it's a work in progress.
Mhm.
So now we've transitioned you into what we call alpha theta training. And I did some postgraduate training on this specific type of neurofeedback many years ago. And it was amazing. Just the first several hours of sitting through the coursework, I'm like, wow, I didn't realize neurofeedback had this application as well. And I'll never forget during that training, one of my mentors, professors, took us through the just kind of history from a neurophysiological standpoint, what's happening in the brain during alpha theta training, but took us well beyond any computer technologies. And this one just really stood out. Has anyone ever noticed, if you're in front of a campfire or even a fireplace, or these days we have these little fire pits that we can put on our patio, do you notice how you become fixated on the flickering faint flame? And
Yeah.
you find it relaxing,
Yeah.
and you almost can't take your sight off of it. The reason for that is that flickering flame, whether it's from a fireplace, campfire, the frequency of that flickering light is in the range of alpha and theta brainwave frequencies.
Really? Really?
Yes, and that's just one example. So he then went into a little bit more history of, again, we flash forward to where we're using computer technology to help engage our brains in that process. But think about it, Indian cultures, so American Indians, South American Indians. What they would do is they would chant, they would dance around fires, and they would also use herbs and whatever things, and they would smoke these in their peace pipes, as they call them. So they had that chemical effect along with the flickering flames, and they were able to enter these deep states of subconsciousness, what we call meditation, to be able to go out and perhaps as all the males and hunt their next animal for their tribe, or to bring up that courage, to be able to sharpen their skills, to be able to hunt down that animal, or in any application. What they were doing was what we're doing with neurofeedback. Again, we did not know that back then, but it was just interesting, that historical perspective during my training. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool how all this relates, and all comes back to just scientifically how our brains work. So alpha theta is using the same neurofeedback equipment that you've been accustomed to. You have the sensors on your scalp. You're doing this in an eyes closed state. And different than guiding your brain through what we call operant conditioning, which is standard neurofeedback, we use what's called a frequency following response. So we're giving your brain, based on where it is in real time, which the sensors are picking up, we're giving your brain these frequency tones, and you can relate to this. You're hearing these tones, and those
Yeah.
tones are in the range of alpha and theta. And then if your brain starts to shift out of alpha theta into sleep state, you get a little bit of a buzzer, and you may not hear it much because you may not be
No.
slipping into that
Yeah.
sleep state. And then in the background, you're also hearing intermittently, you're hearing rainforest sounds or ocean sounds.
Yeah.
And the combination of what seems to be these random intermittent sounds are actually getting your brain to follow these sounds, guiding it into this alpha theta state. And it's an amazing state if we can focus that. Now, this is commonly referred to as neuromeditation. Why? Because we're using the technology to so-called biohack our way into a deep meditative state
Mhm.
that it may take, say, an experienced meditator or a Buddhist monk months or even years to get their brainwave activity into these states by just closing their eyes, filtering out any thoughts, any sounds from their environment, focusing on breath. And for those people in our listening audience that may have practiced meditation, still continue to practice meditation, there's different types of meditation. Well, imagine there's a technology, and this technology has been around for a long time, that can guide your brain ultimately into these states that we're all trying to achieve when we sit down to relax or go into states of meditation. We can get ourselves there in a much more efficient, quicker way. And that's what alpha theta training is all about. So just give a little background on again, standard neurofeedback, your transition and your
Yeah.
personal journey into what you're doing now and currently doing, which is the alpha theta training.
Yeah.
So,
And when these emotions were coming out of me, and it was primarily anger, frustration, it started, I was able to match, like if I allowed my body to kind of match the emotion, I could see where it was coming from. I allowed it to flow. I allowed it, at first I was kind of blocking it, and that was when my husband said, you seem agitated, because I was trying to block it. I was trying to say, okay, why am I feeling this way? But once I embraced it, through our conversation, once I embraced it and I started embracing the noises, all those different noises that were coming from the vibrations, that the frequencies, that plus the waterfall, nature, birds chirping, to the ocean going back and forth. And once in a while I'd get the buzzard, or I was like, my brain could not shut down. It was like picking up all those things. And it was like, my thing is like, am I doing this right? That's what I kept saying. Am I doing this right? Because I kept hearing these, these noises. And it was like, but that was enough to shake the tree, to let the coconuts fall down. You know what I mean? The mangoes or whatever. It was just shaking me to the point where I could no longer suppress those emotions. And since you coached me, I was able to continue with it, and I feel that, okay, now I know what it is. But I can see how that could help an athlete who is running, and running is their choice drug, versus numbing, because they like blank your mind. When
mhm.
people are runners and they're like my daughter is a triathlete. She is a marathon runner, and I know that there's that runner's high that comes to people. But it also happens with people when they're doing like numbing with alcohol or television or sex or whatever it is that they're doing, that keeping them from these emotions. Have you dealt with athletes that have gone through this process where they're getting, like, their emotions are being tapped into?
Yeah,
And can you share any stories of any of your athletes, or maybe executives that want to achieve something better by
sure.
doing alpha theta training?
Yeah, so alpha theta training, again, sometimes referred to as neuromeditation, is kind of like what I consider that next best step after we have done amplitude training and we get the
Yeah,
brain in a more balanced functioning state. Person has experienced their improvements in cognitive,
yeah,
emotional, behavioral well-being. However, even though you transitioned to this, you still had some what I call emotional release or integration. Part of it was just transitioning to a different type of neurofeedback, where now you didn't have that visual stimulation. You weren't engaged in watching a movie or a television show. You had to close your eyes. And for a lot of us that are just busy throughout the day, busy minds, it's tough.
yeah,
So it's important that we coach people through, and some people just get it, their brains get it, and they can easily acclimate. Others, it takes, and I usually preface as we make this transition, it takes about a half dozen sessions for you on a conscious and subconscious level to transition to alpha theta. But once you do, it can be amazing, and it has so many different applications, including peak performance for athleticism and other things, which we'll get to, but also has applications for what I call the integration process, integrating from previous traumas. And I work with so many people that unfortunately have had significant traumatic events in their life, emotional traumas, whether it be physical abuse, sexual abuse, even just verbal abuse. And of course, we can relate to even our own lives. We can relate to the big events, the divorces, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a pet, the significant accidents or health issues. And again, we all have our degrees of all of these things, but what people don't understand, and this is all part of what I've learned in my, especially alpha theta training, postgraduate training, is we all experience trauma on a daily basis, emotional trauma, especially in today's fast-paced world, our demands on ourselves, our demands to support our family, do our jobs and our career, our relationships with each other. These are all little micro traumas that have a cumulative effect that can add up to those significant traumas that other people might experience that maybe we didn't necessarily experience. And alpha theta has an application to get to the bound up the best way to describe it is faulty neurophysiology that's bound up in the neurons in our brain, the deeper recesses of our brain, and actually bring our brain through the integration process. So what you experience is not only the transition, but it could have been some of this, again, just bound up energy that was not serving you well, and now your brain has released it. And sometimes people will have an emotional response, if not during a session. It may come during sleep time. They may start to have vivid dreams that perhaps they didn't have before. And if they can remember their dreams the next morning, they can sometimes relate it back to prior emotions or emotional traumas. And this is not always the case. And I always let people know that if you experience this type of stuff, it ever gets too uncomfortable, make sure you keep me in the loop, let me know. If we have to pause the sessions to allow your brain and your body moments to, or time to recover, that's an important part of this process. But it can be quite profound just for that perspective alone. And again, this is when we have this bound up emotional trauma neurologically in our brain, which translates to our entire body. And we can use powerful technologies like neurofeedback, particularly alpha theta training, to release that once and for all. It's just like this released energy. But on the opposite side of that, once you go through this integration process, it really can change, especially your emotional behavioral well-being. This is where I see people really break through their lifelong anxiety or depression. So there's that application for it. Now, I'll start with my own personal experience and kind of take you through the journey. So when I left this postgraduate training and I went on to take a few more courses in it, and again, this is just learning this type of neurofeedback. I'm like, I can't wait to start this because like yourself, I had been doing traditional neurofeedback, watching movies, which I loved. And I started doing the alpha theta. Like anything I bring in my clinical practice, I like to tinker with it first. I want to try it myself so I can relate to a person's experience. And within probably 6 sessions, it took me some time to acclimate. I started to realize this effect of what meditation was all about. And I never really took the time throughout my life to practice meditation, never went to any classes or received specific instruction on meditation. I would take time out of my day, usually in the evening before bed. And my way was just through listening to music. I would take time to put headphones on, close my eyes, and just relax to music. So if you want to call that meditation, so be it. But when I started doing alpha theta training, that was just a game changer for me. And you talk about how we can use other things to suppress our emotions and we find them to be addictive. I found to be alpha theta training addictive to where I wanted to keep doing it. And like what you're doing now, this is back when there was no such thing as home-based neurofeedback. So I would have my staff set me up on a session before our office closed, because oftentimes during the sessions, you fall into like a light sleep. It's not quite a full sleep, but you go into a semi-sleep state, this unconscious state. So I would have them lock the door behind them, lights would be closed or shut down in the office, and I would have them set a timer because sometimes I would go beyond my 40-minute session and the timer would be there to prompt me, hey, I need to go home and have dinner. But make a long story short it became addictive for me. And I have all the recordings, just as I have the recordings for your sessions. And I have done well over 350 sessions over the years. I don't do them as frequently because I have the cumulative effect of those sessions during the course of those couple of years that I was doing them quite frequently. And the lifelong changes it's made for me. And again, this was back in 2016, 2017, around that time frame that I was doing them that frequently and was so-called addicted to them because of how I felt. And that's persisted throughout my career and my day-to-day life, my relations with others. So I can relate to the alpha theta experience, and it's ultimately where I want to help people get to once we bring them through typical neurofeedback. Although I do start some people with alpha theta just based on their needs and where they're at. And this is where we come into the topic for today, which is peak performance. So to answer your question, yes, I have worked with several athletes over the years, a couple of UFC fighters. I've worked with both retired and active NBA players, MLB players, a couple of Olympians on the bobsled team. I've worked with a Mexican Olympian on the, I guess you call it sharpshooting team. So these people are coming to neurofeedback, not necessarily to overcome their cognitive incapacities
Yeah.
or their emotional well-being or their depression, they're looking for that extra competitive edge that can make the difference between first place and second place, or not being on that podium, or receiving the gold
Yeah.
medal
Yeah.
or the silver medal, or placing or ranking in their athleticism. So what's really neat about Alpha Theta is it has that whole application for peak performance. And it's not, it goes beyond athleticism. I've also worked with professional musicians, and they're using it to just improve their artistic abilities, their ability to play their instrument with more fluidity. In fact, speaking of which, someone that came from one of our podcasts that you and I have spoken, she's noticed a difference in her ability to play as she does for leisure, but also as an instructor. Her ability for her musical abilities and
Yeah.
talents have expanded. So anyway, and I've worked with also CEOs and executives who are just trying to get the most out of their ability to communicate with others, have multiple things going on, stay calm in light of situations that might arise. As we all know, for those of us that are self-employed or our own businesses, whether we have a staff of 100 or 1,000 or ourselves, things come up in business. That's just the nature of the business world, and how you handle those things and progress through them, and still at the end of the day have positive outcomes for your corporation and also your customers, and serving your customers. All this comes back to our ability through our brain function. So this is the beauty of alpha theta training, or sometimes what we call neuromeditation, and its application for peak performance.
Well, I want to address some of the things that you said that kind of struck a nerve with me as I was hearing you. You said that this process could be uncomfortable. And it was uncomfortable. The alpha theta training was uncomfortable for me the first 3 sessions. And one of the things you said is we can push it back if it's uncomfortable. But for me, I saw that some of those emotions, I was journaling on many of these emotions, and I thought I'd rather have them outside of me. And I could see how we become kind of like, even people that are high achievers can become complacent and kind of like get comfortable. And I feel like that was my story. I kind of got comfortable after the pandemic that we had, and not going out and doing and working my business as much. And I had mentioned to you how excited I am about doing certain things now that I've been able to been doing neurofeedback for a while. I'm excited about reigniting my business again, and excited about certain things that I had just put off to the side. And I would say that for me, if I were to give you a testimonial, I didn't realize I was asleep. I didn't
Mhm.
realize that some of my goals and my passions, just like when people do New Year's resolutions, like they have these, oh, they're really excited about it. And then by the first month, 8 weeks later, they're done. And they just like put that feeling aside. They don't even think about it again. But what if through neurofeedback, you could keep that feeling alive, and that emotion, it becomes more of a commitment as opposed to a resolution. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, I started feeling like, okay, let me clear the cobwebs out of here that I didn't realize were there. And until I started feeling that uncomfortable feeling, and you telling me that it's okay, that this is normal, and that if you could either work through it, or we can dish it back, or whatever you call, dial it back, as you said, I wanted to move forward. So for those of you who try neurofeedback and you feel uncomfortable once you get to this meditative alpha theta training, at least get some coaching. I coached myself. I actually went through some coaching with Dr. Michelle Lamassa Dawson. I went through training with her, and it helped me tie in all these different gaps that I didn't even know were there. So that's number one. Number two, um, it's nice to relate to somebody's story, but my story might be different than somebody else's story, but it's still a story and it's still valuable. So just because you may not relate to what I'm saying or what Dr. Silva is saying, perhaps your story is different and your need is different. But when I hear about cognitive decline, it's really easy to dismiss. Well, no, it was manageable. Everything is manageable. We kind of get used to our cognitive decline and going to the refrigerator 5 times before you realize what you are looking for, or going into your bedroom 10 times before you realize, oh, this is what I came here for. We get used to stuff like that. But once you start embracing it and you start looking at what could I improve upon in my life? Not necessarily what's wrong. And all this emotional stuff started happening. Like I didn't even know what was happening. But isn't it nice that once it comes up, you can deal with it and then you can just move on from it, as opposed to stopping your excellence because your brain won't allow you to go there. That's what I'm hearing you say.
That's a great way to describe it. And it's even hard for that people have gone through this experience, whether it be traditional neurofeedback training or especially the alpha theta training, which is that next level training. They can't even put words on it. And it's tough for some people to describe not only the experience while you're doing the sessions, but the cumulative effect and how that carries on through your day-to-day life, from your internal thoughts, your ability to stay motivated, to tackle new things that perhaps you didn't even think because it wasn't even part of your reality. And that's the cool thing about this is I can relate to where you're at. At the time, I really was ramping up my efforts and doing a lot of alpha theta training. I was taking some pretty intense coursework in what's called functional neurology. And neurology in of itself, but especially functional neurology. And the coursework I was taking was working toward the diplomat program, which I'm still working on. But anyway, very intense coursework. And at the same time, I was also trying to motivate myself through transitioning my clinical practice away from the typical, I hate to say it, allopathic, where we're billing insurance, I had staff dealing with all the rigmarole of that, because a lot of what I do, unfortunately, is not covered by most insurance plans. And I knew if I want to bring my practice to what I was experiencing, I had to let go of that. And it was tough. I mean, this has been my career. This is how I received money.
And you're great at it too. That's how I met you.
Yeah. And I just, you start developing this motivation. I'm like, where's this coming from? The only thing that changed, I mean, I was still doing my same exercise routines, still eating the same way, all the same health and wellness lifestyle things I had been doing for years. But the big factor at that time was this alpha theta training. And I look back now in retrospect, as a lot of people can, and just improved motivation. And I'll just give you an example. For me to sit down, and I'm sure doctors who might be listening, or if your career involves you having to either type out or write out notes, I like the interaction. I like hands-on. I like working with people. To have to sit and document this stuff, which I still have to do, but when it comes to meeting the demands of the insurance industry and that whole rigmarole, it can be daunting. And I would put off to the last minute until I finally got it done. I was pressured to do it. Well, going through this process, and this is just one example, I just found it motivating. Not motivating, but I just got it done. Check off my list. All right, done.
Look at all my paperwork.
Move on to the bigger things.
I don't take a lot of notes. I do take a lot of notes since I started doing the classroom, but when it comes to, education and things like that, my notes were so specific. Like sometimes I just put a general idea. I was so specific with my notes when I was going through the holistic cancer coaching course. It was man, I don't even, and I could read my handwriting too. So it's another thing. I could read my handwriting. My husband always says that I should have been a doctor because he can't read my handwriting, but I could actually read it. I noticed at the beginning when I first started doing my training, the visual training, that my handwriting changed, but it wasn't good. All of a sudden it started changing back again. I don't know if that's normal too. I don't know if that's
I mean, and again, this is so sometimes people will come to me with these odd things and hey, could this be related to what I'm doing? whether it's a transition where things may get a little worse before they get better or come back to normalcy. But flip side of that, I've had people, including parents with their kids, within sometimes just several weeks of doing neurofeedback, they're like, oh, my penmanship has improved, or my child's ability to write and is improved.
Or the
And
blockage that they
you can
have
always
of
relate it
limiting
back to,
beliefs.
because it's all in our brain. That's
Yeah,
responsible for this coordination and this ability to carry out that thought and put it on paper or type it into a computer,
yeah.
and do that with efficiency and with some congruency, and for people to relate to what you're writing or typing.
Well,
Yeah.
for me, I mean, I just recently had a conversation with Robert. It's for me, it is the intensity by which I want to achieve a goal. I don't know if any of you can relate to this, or you, Dr. Silva, but sometimes we make a goal and we're like, oh, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's the intensity of which I want to achieve that goal that is so palpable in me, to the point where I said to my husband, I see it now. I see why I've been feeling a certain way. I see why. And it's because the cobwebs have been cleared from the mind, where it's okay. It's okay to feel that way. Well, they didn't really mean to hurt you. Or maybe, if you feel left out or you feel a certain way, you know what, that's on them. We can rationalize all that, but going through the emotion of it and allowing it to be released will take us further than if we just keep ignoring it and ignoring it and ignoring it. And I'm just so grateful to this, Dr. Silva. This has been life-changing. And along with that, I just want to talk about my website here. For those of you who would like to learn more about neurofeedback, not just by what Dr. John and what we're talking about here, we're also recording my sessions where you get to see Dr. Silva, and this is unedited. It is unlisted on YouTube. So the only way you can get these videos is by texting me or emailing me, because I'm not going to put it out there unless you're interested. I'm not just going to put it out there. But if you're interested, we're going to start a playlist on neurofeedback with Dr. Silva. So everything will be there on YouTube. And so if this is something that is speaking to you, the concept of neurofeedback, and you have any questions, we'll give you Dr. Silva's information as well as I share. Go to whenyounneedafriend.com. And while you're there, please subscribe, like, and follow, because you may just be interested in this topic alone. So you'll get a notification when you subscribe of when Dr. Silva is going to be on. You get whatever it is that you want your preferences to be. You can select it to just get the once a week blogs, or you can get the daily classes that are audio only. You could do that. You can choose all of that. But whatever you choose, I'm telling you, if I look at, I've worked with psychiatrists, even holistic psychologists, psychiatrists, the amount of the amount of money that they charge, even though we've had it here in the classroom and we do the class for free, but the amount of money they charge for their patient is a heck of a whole lot more than trying neurofeedback. Just saying. Everybody's going to have their own experience, but go to whenyounneedafriend.com, check out the conversations with Dr. Silva, check out the conversations with others that have to do with personal growth, because you will also find this under personal growth, because I feel that I've been liberated in many ways. And so check it out. Also, check out my sponsors, support them the way that they're supporting the classroom. Like me and follow me on all social media. Share this video with everybody that you know, because you never know what they're dealing with. Because these are conversations that maybe feel a shame for people, not for me. I'm out there opening it up. So I'm just sharing these things with you so that you don't have to feel that shame. Just go through it, go for it. Achieve what it is that you want to achieve. If you have a dream, if you have a goal, this is the place where we can say, it stops with me. It stops with me. Anyway, so go check out our conversations, check out our sponsors, support them the way that they're supporting the classroom. You can also go to my affiliate page, which is the Shop Now page. It's not all of them are affiliate, but that's where I put it. These are the things that I love, that are natural, holistic. So please check them out the way, and I love them, and you can check them out for yourself as well. And then last but not least, you can become an enrolled student in the classroom, and whether it's $1 or $1,000 a month or a one-time donation, whatever the case may be, if you want this class to continue, please help us out in any way. Sharing it, putting emojis, making comments, all those things help the algorithms as well so that this gets out to even more people. So today we have Dr. John Silva. Dr. John Silva is a chiropractor who has gone beyond. He's been shot out of a cannon when it comes to the education, when it comes to neurology and neurofeedback. I absolutely have loved working with him. You can find him at drjohnsilva.com. That's his website. You can also call him at 772-429-8800. That number again is 772, and it's in the description as well. So if you're watching this and if you're hearing this, just go to the description because the information will be there as well. That's 772-429-8800. As I said before, you can email me at lily@whenyouneedafriend.com or text me at 407-373-5959, or you can reach out to Dr. Silva at info@drjohnsilva.com. And so that is the way that you can find out. Now, when people watch this video, can they get a free consultation with you if they say they saw it in the classroom?
Yes, they can either call me or you can go to my website, and we now have the ability to self-schedule a complimentary consultation. You'll be directed through some just basic questions so I can get a better understanding of what our meeting will be about, and I'll be more than happy to invest 20 to 30 minutes at no cost to at least discover where you're at, where you're looking to take your life, what obstacles are in the way, and could what I offer, including neurofeedback, be the next best step for you? Sure.
A couple of times, Dr. Silva, and I want to thank you for allowing me the privilege to have this experience with you. And I said to you, I was very skeptical. It's like, what is this going to do for me? And you kept asking me, do you feel any different? At the beginning, I would say maybe not that much, but I kept doing it. And the more I did it, the more I became aware of some of the changes in me. The way I was managing things, the way I was handling things, the way I was, just the way I was feeling about things. Now, my goal was to sleep better. But the benefits, the side effects that have come from the goal of sleeping better have been exponential. Like I said, completing my course was, I sat in bed because it was difficult. It was difficult to complete. And I sat in bed that night going, I can't believe this is behind me. But I'm not just ending it there. I'm going to do an internship at a holistic cancer center. Where did that come from? That came from that desire, the intensity by which I am feeling my desire for growth to become better. And I really do believe that it is what I'm doing with the neurofeedback, especially the alpha theta training for me, because I don't know if I've said this to you before, that of all the things that I've been asked to do, like I don't like doing yoga. I don't like doing like meditation. I like journaling. I like activities, where I can interact, but just sitting there, just with my eyes closed. In the past, I've felt guilty because I should be doing other things that I felt too tired to do.
Yeah.
But with the training, I don't feel tired to do it.
Yeah. And
Does that
it sounds like you're getting at that point where I realized it almost becomes addicting. It's like, I want more of this. Where is this coming from?
Yeah.
That I'm able to not only motivate, but get the energy and just keep looking even beyond my next goal or my
Yes.
next checklist item.
Yeah.
That's where this work gets really exciting. And this is the cool thing about this is with alpha theta training, as with traditional neurofeedback, you're making these progressional neural physiological changes, rewiring your brain. And this is lifelong changes that you will continue to experience. And that's what you're experiencing is, the old adage, energy flows in the path of least resistance. We're helping you, and you experience some of that bound up emotional energy from
Yeah.
maybe traumas or
Yeah.
stresses throughout your lifetime, or maybe big traumatic events. And you went through that integration process where it felt a bit uncomfortable, which is not uncommon, but we worked through that. And now your brain has cleared these pathways
Yeah.
and you're creating these new ones of less energy resistance. I'm reminded of Nikola Tesla, one of the most brilliant minds in our time. What does he say? If you want to understand the universe, and we're part of a universe, and our relation with the universe, think of terms of energy and frequency and vibration. That's where all the beauty of any of this is, especially neurofeedback, because we're dealing with energy patterns through brainwave activity and measuring that and giving your brain feedback on how to better balance and direct that. It all is based on what he postulated many, many, many years ago, just using advancements in what we currently have in computer science and neuroscience. And to think where our world will be in another 5 years as these technologies, I mean, just again, 5, 6 years ago, people would come to my clinic to have to do these sessions. Now you're experiencing, as with all my clients now, the ability to do this from your comfort and convenience of your home. And again, I look ahead to the future where we're going to be in 5 years from now. The technology that you're using is going to be less cumbersome. In fact, I'm already waiting for that next step. As you know, when you're doing these sensors, you just give people some insight. The way we hold these sensors on our scalp is with a little bit of what's called conductive taste. And especially females with long hair, it can be a little challenging.
Especially the ones back here. Man, go ahead.
But it does get bound up in your hair. The easiest way to clean it is with water or rubbing alcohol. It comes right off, or if you take a shower right after. But we have technologies now using what's called dry electrode technology, and we're on the cusp of integrating that into our home systems, where you'll just put on some type of apparatus and you'll be able to just sit without having to use the messy paste and do your neurofeedback sessions. That's just one example. So yeah, I'm patiently waiting for that. It's in the development stage and actually going through the trial stage right now. So, and it just makes you wonder. And again, and this is the cool thing about just where we are as a society and globally. Yes, there is a lot of turmoil. There are a lot of stuff going through right now. I see it as this big transitional phase for all of us, whether we're doing neurofeedback or delving into energy medicine and getting a better understanding of our universe at large, or our own health, and how we can better ourselves. But we are all going to be going through this transition, and all for the better. Yes, we're still going through some turmoil. So for those of us that are doing this kind of work, again, whether you're just taking the time to relax, meditate, how you've been instructed, or you meditate, and like yourself, I never really enjoyed meditation or yoga. I was more of I needed to get things done, do that kind of stuff.
Journaling is my meditation, but
Okay, yeah. And for me, again, it was relaxing with music. I love music. But when I started doing this, it was a game changer. Is just the best way to describe it, as you kind of described as well.
Yeah.
And this is why we call this peak performance, using neurofeedback for peak performance. So it's tapping into that unlimited potential that we all have residing within us. You know, it reminds me of something else. For anyone that may have seen the movie called Limitless with Bradley Cooper.
Yes, I
Check
did.
it out. It was this, again, fictional, but it was based on a supposed drug that was manufactured by a pharmaceutical company. And when you took this drug, it just opened up all those neurological pathways to better your abilities. And in his case, he was able to write novels and learn music and do this within short periods of time. The reality is there's no drug like that. We're all seeking that, but it doesn't exist. I don't think it will ever exist. However, we do have therapies and technologies that have existed for decades, like neurofeedback, to be able to give us that potential. Yes, it's going to be a bit of time, unlike taking that supposed drug, that fictional drug. What was it called? ZRT, I think it was called.
Yeah, but they
anyway.
all have side effects. These drugs all have side effects. This doesn't
in
have
fact, I think that movie came out right about the time I was really involved in this peak performance neurofeedback alpha theta training. And when I saw that movie, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can relate to what he's going through. But I wasn't taking a fictional drug. I was actually going through the neurofeedback experience.
Yes. So let's talk about, for anybody who's saying right now, well, this sounds really expensive. And I had just mentioned that I've spoken to holistic psychiatrists, holistic psychologists, and hourly rates for those are very, very high. I'm not saying that you don't forego it, but what I'm experiencing, and yes, I know I'm a coach, and I'm using other people to discuss certain things as well. But give us a price reference, because this is out of pocket. Insurance does not pay for this. So can you give us a reference of how?
Sure. Yeah. And I'm curious, what is a typical session with a psychiatrist or a
Oh,
psychologist
it's
or
like
therapist?
$350 an hour.
Really? Okay.
Yes, with
I
a
mean,
holistic psychiatrist, yes.
so put this in perspective. Clinical neurofeedback, where you would go to a clinic several times a week and receive, which there's still many clinics that offer this. I've completely transitioned to home-based for a number of reasons. And typically, average national average is about $100 to $150 for a neurofeedback session in a clinic. Well, you can more than half that with home-based neurofeedback. And not only can you save money compared to doing it in a clinic, but you have the added convenience of
Being at
doing it
home.
anytime that you want. As you know, you can access your software in your system and do your sessions at any point throughout the day, 24/7.
Yep.
So it really has been a game changer. And that's why I've exclusively shifted to remote home-based neurofeedback. And I work with people beyond the state of Florida, where we both reside. I work with people throughout the country and actually work with people globally.
Yeah.
In fact, a couple of the athletes I actually work with are from other countries over in Europe and abroad. So yeah, it's exciting. Again, where we're at, I never would have envisioned 10 years ago that I'd be doing this. We'd be offering this in a home setting and then working with people over in Europe across the pond.
Yeah.
And it's quite exciting. Yeah.
I want to show this image that I sent to my children and my family members. It's the image of this is my first scan. These are different. The first one is delta, theta, alpha, and beta. I think beta, yeah. So, but you see, we don't want the red, we don't want the yellow, and this is where my brain was. This is my second QEEG. Look at how, if you compare the two, look at how much improvement I've had, where the yellow is gone in some areas. So this is measurable. This is measurable. So I'm looking forward to seeing what my brain looks like after this last bit of the alpha theta training. After alpha theta, what's next? Is
I
there?
mean, you can continue to do alpha theta.
Okay, so that continues.
Maybe not as frequently as you are engaged in it right now. Like I'm at that point where I will do it maybe once every couple of months, just to kind of sharpen my brain,
yeah.
especially if I'm noticing little subtle things throughout my day, maybe starting to feel a little stressed or agitated. Then I will tune into an alpha theta training session. But there are other therapies that I also work that are brain-based therapies. So things like, in fact, this could be a topic for another future podcast, is some of the other brain therapies that, again, have existed for decades. Things like audiovisual entrainment, or what we call neuroentrainment, the use or application of other energy modalities like pulse electromagnetic field, and its application for the brain. Yep. Oxygen therapy. I mean, there's numerous other things I've worked with in my clinic, and I offer it for my clients and patients at home. So yeah.
Well, I absolutely love this. I highly recommend it. I've been doing this now for several months, maybe on my third month now, and I've seen incredible changes. I mean, and if you want to watch some of the other shows that we've done in the past, some of the other classes, I will have them all in the playlist under neurofeedback, so you can go there as well. Once again, this is Dr. John Silva. You can find him at Dr. John Silva. That's S as in Sam, ILV as in Victor, A.com. All the information is in the description below. You can also call him at 772-429, 8800, or you can reach out to him at drjohnsilva.com. So thank you, Dr. Silva, for everything that you're doing. I'm so grateful that we were reconnected again. It's been life-changing, so thank you.
You're welcome. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. John Silva, wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.